and the trainer said, "Oh, you should do it from space." I said, "How can I do it from space? I can't swim." And so the way we did it was use the bike, use the cycle, but then we used the ARED, and we did exercises from head to toe for about a half an hour.
Simulating
simulate
swimming.
simulate swimming.
Okay.
It was harder.
It was, I think, 1 mile you swam on
in that
ISS?
triathlon. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so for all of you astronauts, Space Shuttle was a home, So when the program ended, I know you were looking forward to the new program that NASA was taking up, but what were the thoughts in the astronaut community about end of the Space Shuttle program and completion of ISS?
I think most of us feel that it's new opportunities, and we're working on those new opportunities now. So, any program that you have, anything that you have, it costs a little bit of money. So, if you could stop spending money on the old program, you can spend money on the new program. And as NASA, we have bigger exploration goals. We're orbiting around low Earth orbit with the International Space Station, learning a lot about how to live and work in space, particularly if we want to send you guys on the large, long ride to Mars. So we got to figure this out. It's not just a 10-day trip to space and back home. It's a 6-month ride all the way to Mars. So that's why we have the International Space Station, to figure all that out. And in the meantime, we can spend our resources developing a new spacecraft, and that's what we're doing now. So now we're developing the Orion spacecraft to launch on a big rocket called the Space Launch System rocket. And we're going to test that out in the next couple years, unmanned first, without any people in it, and then we'll put people on it, and then we'll take a ride around the moon just to see that we can actually get that far and then come back to prove out that situation. And then maybe we'll even tackle getting close to an asteroid, learning a little bit more about that, figuring out how to maybe even make a space station on the moon, and then maybe farther on to Mars. So that's our goal. That's what we're working on right now. So I think people were a little bit sad about the space shuttle leaving, because it wasn't the workhorse, the thing that made the space station happen, but it also opens up new opportunities for make new spacecraft.
So now you are training the crew of Boeing and SpaceX, the next commercial crew, which is going to take up the deep space exploration. What is the schedule like? What do you do, and how is the training going?
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit different. Orion is what NASA's working on, but in the meantime, what we've also done, we have asked commercial companies, hey, can you guys make a spacecraft? Because people are now getting smarter and technology has advanced. Yeah, we can make a spacecraft. So we have asked 2 companies, Boeing and SpaceX, to come up on their own with just some guidelines from NASA to come up with a spacecraft that will go up to low Earth orbit, will go to the space station, deliver people there. And so what's neat about that is, if you think about it, some of the people in this room probably remember telephones connected to your wall, and now you have an iPhone. There's a lot of technology that has come between that phone on the wall to this iPhone, and we're allowing these companies to take all of those advances in technology and put them into a spacecraft, something that we hadn't done. The space shuttle was the old telephone type of a machine. These new spacecraft will take advantage of using very small electronics, very reliable, safer electronics, and be able to take that huge step in technology. So I'm working on that program right now. And that while NASA is continuing on with the Orion spacecraft for a little bit later. These new spacecraft should be flying in 2017, very soon, and we'll be testing them out, test driving them on their first 2 missions, and then handing them over to the rest of the astronaut office to fly. So that's what I've been doing.
Okay, so let's all congratulate her on her selection for, I'm not yet over, on her selection for the crew of 4 going to Mars. She particularly would not be going to Mars herself, maybe, but the training is going on. She'll explain about that. So we all congratulate you for being selected
Thank you.
as the crew of the Mars exploration. So could you explain what is going on there, and what are the plans of NASA, and what sort of planning is going on?
Yeah, so we're a part of the process. Actually, I have a little bit of a video. Maybe we can play the whole PowerPoint, because that will explain it a little bit more. Let's do the PowerPoint. Is that
Okay,
okay?
so kids, I have deliberately left the questions which are very interesting, so that I have taken you through her life, what has happened, so that you can fire your questions. I have been given hints thrice to stop. Probably the time is over, but it was wonderful talking to her. Let's see this video, and then I'll thank her formally, and then probably it will be to you to ask questions.
This one, yes, commercial crew. Yeah. Can I talk from here? That's not it, is it? Sure. This does. 1 minute. Yeah, okay. This is not the one. Okay, how do I go?
You want to go back to the folder? This folder? You want to be on the presentation?
No, let's just do this one. Just do. It's something that's not, this one, it's not coming up like that.
Commercial crew program, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and how do I go forward?
I can do that if you want.
Okay, I'll do it. Can you hear me from here? Sorry about that. So I'll run through this pretty quick, just so you can get a visual on some of the things I was just talking about. So the commercial crew program is the next program that we're working on that is leading us up to this next thing called SLS and Orion. So this is actually, this slide right here sort of shows the whole process, and you can see down on the bottom there, it says commercial crew program, or commercial cargo and crew. So that's where the private companies are taking advantage of technology with advancements in the last 2 decades, coming up with spacecraft that are going to launch into low Earth orbit. We're handing that over to all the commercial companies. It's pretty interesting how they're doing that. And they will be going to the International Space Station, which you see on the top there. A little bit lower, moving toward the right there, you see Orion. That's what the Orion capsule looks like, and we're going to look at it a little bit bigger coming up, and that's going to go on to the moon, just to take a lap around the moon, just to prove out that technology, and that's what I was mentioning. We'll move on to potentially an asteroid, and then we'll enlighten us a little bit more and more about what happens when you get a little bit farther away from Earth. We have things that we have to worry about, like radiation. So we'll be using all these spacecraft as test beds as we're moving farther and farther away from Earth, and understanding what happens to people. So we're moving closer and closer toward Mars. In the meantime, you might have noticed, or might know, over the last 10 years, we've been sending up all sorts of probes and spacecraft toward Mars to sort of understand, where's a good landing site? Where are you guys going to land your spacecraft when you get to Mars? We're working on all of that with both the robotics and these other spacecraft which are being developed right now. So this explains it a little bit more, just showing a little bit more detail which spacecraft which are going to be doing what, and what are some of the things that we have to worry about. A 6 to 12 month mission, going into a one month to 12 month mission, and then going into a 2 to 3 year mission. So when you guys go to Mars, you're not going to just go for a couple days. This is going to take a couple years, so we're all going to have to get ready for that. So we're going to have to learn a little bit more about ourselves and how we're going to deal with that. So this is a little bit of I'm not going to go over this chart, but just sort of what's going on and where some of the changes are in the current manifest of spacecraft. What it's getting at here is space is getting busy. There's lots of spacecraft up there. The space station is a traffic jam. We have cargo resupply vehicles going up there, as well as people going up there, and we're going to have to use that model as we go on to Mars, because we're going to have logistics for the people who are there as well. So just to give you an idea what the new spacecraft look like, these are the 2 new ones that are made by the companies. They're not quite done yet. However, the first 2 that are going to fly from each company are starting to get put together. I've seen some of the metal of these 2 companies as these spacecraft are being created. The first one is Boeing CST-100, the Starliner. It's going to launch on this big rocket called Atlas V, and what it looks like when it gets to space is what on the left-hand side there. Just to give you a quick little video of what Boeing is doing, this is from them. They, of course, have a big history. There's a little bit difference of the two companies. They have a huge history. They've, of course, been part of the space shuttle. They have made many of the parts on the International Space Station, so they've got a lot of heritage space knowledge. And so they're going to use their space knowledge to create a spacecraft on the inside that probably looks a lot like ones that we've flown before. However, again, they get to use advancements in technology to make their spacecraft a little bit smarter, a little bit better. But their interior of the spacecraft is pretty close to what we've seen and we've used before. They will land on airbags. They'll land on the ground when it comes back. That's a little bit different from the space shuttle, which landed on a runway. This gives you an idea of what it's going to look like, how it's going to dock. The next company, which you might have heard of, is SpaceX. It's a new company, pretty cool. Their rocket is called the Falcon 9. Their spacecraft on the left is called the Dragon, so it has some cool names. Give you an idea of some of the things, some of the testing that they're doing.
7.
This is what we call a pad abort test. So there's a series of numbers of tests that you have to do before you're going to actually put people on a spacecraft. This is though there was a problem on the launch pad and the spacecraft would be going away from the launch pad to make sure that the crew members inside would be okay. However, I think this ride would be a little bit rough. I'm not sure I'm ready to sign up for this quite yet. Seems a little scary to me, as you can see the spacecraft twirl around and then the parachutes come out. Initially, this spacecraft is going to land in the water. Eventually, it's going to do something called a propulsive landing. And what's cool about that is they want to use this type of technology, propulsive landing, when we go to Mars, so you can precisely land in the place where you want to land. So, like we were talking about, the 4 of us were assigned to start testing the new spacecraft. But this is the one that I think is most important to you guys out here in the audience. This is the spacecraft that you are going to be flying in. And this video, this is a quick video. It shows a little bit of what an artist's rendition is, because we haven't created everything quite yet, but we've done a lot. And then you'll see some of the real parts.
Video?
Yeah, it should just play.
This one?
It should just play from there. Yeah. So this is what it's going to look like. This is the artist's rendition. But this is the real parts that are actually already being made. So it's not just a dream so far. These are all the outer casings of the rocket itself and the propulsion parts. The top nose of the rocket all being made. This is the biggest rocket that we've ever made. It's a 5-meter rocket across section so that it will hold the Orion spacecraft. This is artist's rendition of the launch of how it's going to be, but real engines are being put together and test fired as we speak. Other test firings, this is our solid rocket boosters like I was talking about. This is what one solid rocket booster looks like. This guy is going to have a number of them. Also, some of the deployable parts have already been tested. The spacecraft itself was just delivered to Kennedy Space Center about 2 weeks ago. There's a lot more that has to be done. They have to put all the avionics and the seats and all that other stuff that us people need, but the shell of the spacecraft has already been created. This guy's going to come back, go off, like I mentioned, around the moon and then come back. And this entry coming back to Earth is a lot steeper than the entry that we use right now. So we actually tested a spacecraft that went 3,000 miles away from Earth and came back and to test the heat shield, because you guys have to survive the entry, right? So the heat shield has to protect you, and the parachute. So we've already tested all of that. We've already got that going. And so it's on its way.
So Sunita, the last question to you from this session. Once you retire, what do you plan to do, and what message do you have for organizations like SPACE who are working into STEM education and spreading astronomy and space science love in young kids?
Well, I got to think a little bit more about the retiring question. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if I ever really want to retire.
should not.
I'm not too old yet, quite yet. But actually, I think more than retire, I think I want to move aside and let this next generation of explorers get out there and be able to do these things, fly on these spacecraft. And organizations like SPACE, you provide that window of opportunity for kids, taking them away from their normal life and opening their eyes to other possibilities that they can do all sorts of things out there. I mean, you can be whatever you want to be, and SPACE is a conduit for that. It's a base for that. It allows, like I said, all of you guys out there to let your imagination go. We are talking about looking at the stars and whether or not that prevents you from doing your homework. But I think that may take up a little time that you won't do your homework, but it probably will take the time to open up your mind and let you imagine what the possibilities are out there. So if you ever get faced with some...
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please be seated. Thank you so much for a great conversation. I have a confession to make. We planned it for a shorter time, but we just didn't want you to stop. So we just made sure that you talk a bit more. So it was that engaging, and thank you so much for being so open and engaging us for this conversation. Thank you so much. Now we are open to questions. So how this works, I point it out to people who can, because so that we avoid chaos. And there are people who are with mics, so they will come to you. Please ask a short question, and then we will have her to answer. So how about we have a girl here, second row from there. So can we have a mic here with her? Yeah. So you want to ask a question?
Better introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, introduce yourself quickly and then ask a question.
Good morning, my name is Anushka and I'm from St. Thomas's School, Dwarka. I have a question from you, ma'am. Which is the planet, you have studied about all the planets, and which is the planet that you admire the most?
I think I admire the most this planet, Earth, because we're here. But no, seriously speaking, I think Earth is where we are, what I feel is like the most important planet. However, of course, Mars is a close second, and I think we need to go explore Mars and understand about Mars so we will understand a little bit more about our planet. Obviously, we have found all sorts of interesting things on Mars, potential water flow, and so maybe something happened to Mars. It would be nice if we knew that so we could plan for what might happen here. Maybe some people, I think Elon Musk from SpaceX, he has the idea that maybe we can terraform Mars to make Mars another outpost for human beings eventually if we need to do that. And as we venture out into the solar system, we're going to find other things. We're going to figure out how maybe we can work with asteroids. Maybe we can protect ourselves from asteroids. I'm not really even sure what we will find out, but that's part of the process of trying to get to the next place. So favorite planet for sure is this one.
Thank you. We have a young guy there sitting, second, yes. So can we have the mic for him, please?
My name is Shaurya. I'm from Manavishna International School, Chambord. My question is, what is NEMO 2 and how does it work?
That's a good question.
So NEMO is not the Nemo fish, Nemo. NEMO 2 is, I'll forget the acronym, NASA Experimental, I don't remember the acronym exactly, but there's a habitat underwater outside of Florida, about 4 miles off the coast of Florida. And we use that as a simulator for going into space because that habitat sits about 15 meters below the surface of the water. we are in scuba equipment and we dive down and we go into that habitat. That habitat is filled with air. So you can take your scuba outfit off, your wetsuit off, and you can wear normal clothes inside of that habitat. Now the parallel is there, while you're underwater and you're living there for a long period of time, it's called saturation diving. So your blood is essentially filled up with nitrogen. So the problem with that is you can't immediately go back up to the surface. You're sort of stuck in there medically for a while until you can, what they call repress, get all that nitrogen flushed out of your system. So it sort of simulates being in space. In space, you can't just open the door and walk out. You have to wait for your ride to come home and then come back to Earth. So it's the same type of thing. So we live underwater like that for about 2 weeks or so, and we do things that are very parallel to living in space. We go out on spacewalks, we put our scuba gear back on, and we can go out and swim or do around outside. And some of the things we do are some construction projects underwater, just like we were building the space station. And so that you're wearing gloves just like you're in a spacesuit. We also do coral science while we're underwater, or any other type of science that the oceanographers want us to do, just like we are doing science experiments on the space station. And so it's the same type of environment where you have to worry about how your spacecraft or your habitat is. You know, you have to maintain it as well as use it to build or to do science. So we use it, like I said, just as a parallel. And so I got to do a NEMO mission for about 2 weeks a number of years ago, just to practice to be essentially in space.
All right, thank you. Manali, can we have one of the teachers is asking a question, so that's where I want the mic.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Prem Kumari Narang from Amity International School, Mayur Vihar, ma'am. My question to you is, how will you define Captain Sunita Williams in one word?
Wow.
Whoa, man.
That's a challenge.
Uh-oh.
Good one.
I hope other people who I have flown with or interacted with would say fun.
Oh.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a nice day.
All right, Soumya, can you have the mic here? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ritvik from DPS Faridabad. My question to you is, how do you cope up with the fact that you may not return to Earth back alive?
Yeah, so interesting question. Usually I think most people go into going to space as, I'm going to come home. I mean, I never thought to myself, you know, there's just no way I would come home. There's a good fighting chance that I will come home and get in a spacecraft and come home. But of course, when you're doing something that's a little bit dangerous, a little bit, or some area where that, you know, it's not very hospitable to people, I think you have to go through that process and really prepare yourself that this might be a possibility. And I think it was very similar to when I was in the military also. When we left, we would go on deployment away from home for a long period of time. You sort of want to